Eamon Khan here for Seconds Out. It's a pleasure to be joined by, albeit through the magic of the internet and Zoom, by a former world champion who may be the best reader of a fight, Chris Algieri, ahead of Pitbull Cruz versus Lamont Roach, vying for the WBC interim super lightweight belt. You can catch Chris in real time during the fight to get his thoughts, throw questions at him in real time during the fight on ppv.com live viewer chat throughout the fight December 6th with no subscription necessary. Everything seems to have a subscription these days. You don't need to do that this time around with ppv.com. Chris, when you do these watch alongs, what's the question that viewers ask you the most?
I get a lot of, because it's so cool that it's like a live interactive chat during real time in the fight. You get a lot of like, "Hey, what'd you think about that round? What does he need to do?" So it's kind of cool. You get to like, not only am I a fighter, but I'm also a commentator. So I'm used to calling fights. So people get to ask me what exactly I'm thinking while it's happening. But yeah, I think boxing fans are they're a pretty smart group. So I get some pretty interesting questions along the way.
Any funny ones?
Yeah, there's always a little bit of back and forth. It's I feel like Twitter is very toxic, but our PPV chat rooms are more like locker rooms where guys are just kind of nudging each other and pushing each other around a little bit, and so it's fun. It's a nice back and forth.
Well, I've got some questions to throw to you today ahead of that December 6th date live watch along on pp.com. What's your read on the fight? Can you lay this out for me? What would you say are the keys to victory for both fighters?
Yeah, initially when I heard about this fight, I never really pictured these two boxers fighting. And But the more and more I've looked into it and analyzed the fight, it's actually an intriguing fight based on their styles. You've got Pitbull Cruz, two-fisted attacker. His name is Pitbull for a reason. The guy is relentless. Come forward charger. Very entertaining fighter. And then you got Lamont Roach, who is that Northeast American. Um, DMV is what we call it area, that Baltimore area style, sharp counterpunching angles, offense, defense mixed together, the sweet science kind of fighter. And so the matchup, when you look at it, it's really interesting. Both guys are probably 35 pounders, even though they're fighting at 140. This is Lamont Roach's third weight class in as many fights in 18 months, but he's coming on the heels of that huge Gervonta Davis performance where he got a lot of attention. Most people thought that he won the fight. And Pitbull Cruz also fought Davis, so they have that common opponent. And in terms of the way they match up in these kind of matchups, I generally lean with the boxer, lean towards the boxer. I think Roach just has more ways to win. But listen, Cruz has a really good way to win, and you only need one. So if he can go out there and punch through the counter puncher, put the pressure on, create chaos in there, I could see how he would be able to overtake and run amok in that ring with a guy like Lamont Roach.
Described Pitbull Cruz as having relentless pressure. Can you describe what that's like in the ring? What that does to your feet, to your calves, your endurance throughout the fight? What it does to your mentality when someone keeps coming forward? What is it like having that pressure and boxing on the back foot with that fighter in front of you?
Yeah, the guy that probably reminds me the most of that I fought of Isaac Cruz was Ruslan Provodnikov. He's a shorter, smaller guy, super aggressive, underrated hand speed, but just tons and tons of pressure, physical pressure, mental pressure, psychological pressure, and power punching. Just hard shots. Everything he threw was damaging, similar to Isaac Cruz. I think Ruslan hit a lot harder than Cruz, but regardless, it was still a similar style. And really, you just got to be super calm under pressure. You have to live in the eye of the storm when you fight a guy like that. And I was a boxer, long range guy, somewhat similar to Lamont in that sense. So it was just basically just staying above the chaos, not allowing it to get too chaotic. And if it does, using smart clinching and angles and footwork to slow the pace of the puncher. Lamont has all the skills to be able to do that, but doing it on fight night and being able to execute and thinking of the game plan are two very different things. We'll see if he can make it happen.
Lamont probably wants to do what you did against Provodnikov, but he's adding a little bit extra spice with it. He's saying that he's confident of being able to knock out Pitbull Cruz. Do you see that with him? Do you think there would be that gap there that Roach can expose?
That would be really surprising. Pitbull's shown himself to be a very durable guy. He went the distance with Gervonta Davis, who's a hell of a puncher. Never really was hurt in that fight. And I think even at 40, I think that Isak Cruz is a very durable guy, and Lamont, respectable puncher for sure, not knocking his punching power at all, not known as a puncher. Uh, got his respect certainly in the Gervonta Davis fight, but I look at him more as respectable power than as in knockout or one punch power. So unless he can really clip and break down a guy like Cruz, this is probably going to go the route, and I could say that on both ends because Lamont has a fantastic chin as well. I don't see this fight ending in stoppage, but listen, this is boxing; anything can happen.
You don't usually get fighters in the mold of Pitbull Cruz either. They're hard to find. They're short, they're squat. We probably got one in the UK in the form of Nick Ball, who
Nick
reminds me
Ball,
of
yeah.
just so solid in the way that they are. Is that a problem for fighters when it comes to preparation in terms of finding the spar and then also getting the measure of them, being that Roach is the taller fighter?
Yeah, I remember even when I was preparing for Ruslan, again, shorter guy. I think he was like 5'6" or something like that, short arms. I had to get a couple different sparring partners. I was using guys in smaller weight classes. I did both. I had big guys in bigger weight classes for the power, and I had guys in smaller weight classes for the size, and just kind of had to mix and match them as we were figuring out. But that's just part of camp. And Lamont has a fantastic team. With between his father and his brother Jordan, and all those guys they have in that area, they have a fantastic gym and crop of fighters. So there's no lack of talent to pick from. But also, he's made some money now. He can fly guys in. I know he's training down in South Florida in the Pro Box TV training facility. Tons of active fighters down here, all shapes and sizes. So I would assume, based on the way that they move, knowing them personally, the Roaches move like it's a business, and they will be prepared to the utmost. But again, it's all about execution on fight night.
What about the fragility in terms of Lamont Roach's side? Have you seen that from him? Do you see the route of success via KO for Pitbull Cruz in knocking out Lamont Roach?
For Cruz to be successful, he's got to create that chaos because when he does that, he just seems to be a step ahead of guys. He's better at that. He's better when you're not in the eye of the storm, when actually everything's flying around you at a crazy pace. He seems to make really good decisions in those kind of opportunities. So if he can create that kind of landscape to get Lamont in, he's got a good shot because he catches you with those little short punches on the inside that are aggressive and powerful. He's also a great body puncher, and he's relentless, like volume, 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 and that's really how you beat a counter puncher like Roach. I don't see any quit in Pitbull. The guy has got a ton of will, a ton of skill, and he's Mexican. He has a whole culture behind him in terms of that. But Lamont is a really tough out as well. I mean, he's the kind of guy too that he has a lot to prove. Spoke to him earlier today for an interview for Pro Box TV, and he was speaking about how important it is to hold his position and how much he cherishes the fact that the people in his area look up to him now. So a lot on the line for both of these guys, and a lot to be lost and a lot to be had.
Would there be, can you let me into mentality of fighters? Is there an element of possible complacency in the Lamont Roach? I mean, I don't want to disrespect Pitbull Cruz in any form of way, but you got the highs of Gervonta Davis, and it's not a massive step down. It's a minorest of step downs if it is indeed at all. But looking at that from Gervonta Davis to Pitbull Cruz, is there any room for complacency for Lamont Roach? Do you see that in his mentality?
Yes, and I don't think the complacency comes from the fact that he's fighting Pitbull Cruz or that he's not fighting Gervonta Davis or anything like that. I think the complacency comes in because of the growth in the profile of Lamont since the Gervonta Davis fight. The fact that he has stayed in the public, the fact that he has not been busy, couldn't get that rematch with Gervonta, and now is closing out the year with this fight. But he stayed in media. His social media is very, very strong. His entourage is going to be healthier. It's going to grow, healthier in terms of being size wise, but not necessarily healthier in terms of psychology. So being able to deal with those other different kinds of stresses, that's going to be the real tell-all. If Lamont maintains his focus and maturity, which I suspect he will, I don't foresee it being a problem. But we've seen it time and time again. Where guys grow too fast, and when they get to the moment, get on those lights, they haven't checked all the boxes getting there, and that's always going to be a problem when you got a guy who's going from relatively unknown to right into the starlight, the spotlight.
I can't let that point slide there. You just sort of alluded to it about when fighters get bigger, their entourage gets bigger as well too. You said that their entourage might get healthier, but is that healthier for a fighter in your experience in your career and seeing other fighters as they grow?
No, not at all. I've actually never seen it be healthy for any fighter's psychology as they've grown. The guys that stay the most consistent over time are the ones that keep things as close to the chest as possible. And from what I've seen from Lamont and his team and his father and his gym, I haven't seen that. I've seen them stay tight to the chest, like I said. They've kept their camp in South Florida. It's not like they're going and training on some island somewhere or anything crazy like that, which guys do. So I do think they're going to keep it close to home and keep it mature because there is so much on the line.
So with that all said, Chris, what is your official prediction for the fight? Can you give one?
Yeah, when I look at fights like this where it becomes like a boxer puncher, counter puncher versus volume guy, I always lean towards the boxer. I think there's just more ways to win for a guy like Lamont Roach. I think it's his time. I think he's grown a lot over the last couple of years. He's gotten over some of the issues that he had early on, like when he lost to Jamel Herring. I called that fight as well. And I think Cruz, he's just so up and down. And for me, to be at this level, you have to be consistent, and that's something that Cruz has not shown me. So I'm not confident in his ability to make sure that he shows up in the best version of himself. So I just think it's Lamont Roach's time to shine. And based on stylistic matchup, I lean towards the boxer because they have more chances to figure it out, more
Couple of
abilities.
interesting, couple of interesting bouts in the lead up to your live watch along on ppv.com. That being Lara versus Janibek in the middleweight division. Just what's your read on that one as well, too, Chris?
Extremely important fight. But Father Time is undefeated. Lara's in, he's not in his natural weight class, although he's been shown himself to be a puncher at this weight class all of a sudden at 40 plus years of age. But he's 42 years old and he's fighting Janabek, and I actually rate Janabek very highly. I think he is the guy in the division to beat. This is good that we're getting a unification fight. We're moving towards an undisputed at middleweight, which I think we can make that happen. Also, kind of, you've got Crawford looming as a potential entry into 160 if these fights do come to fruition. So very, very interesting fight, more for the implications than the actual matchup itself. Don't love the matchup, but you can't ever count out Lara. He's got so much experience, and again, apparently he can punch now. So there's that. But Janabek is a very, very serious foe and someone that anyone in the world has a problem with, including Terence Crawford.
How would you view the fight if we were talking about Lara maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago?
Probably the same.
Hmm.
Probably the same. Still dangerous. I really do rate Janibek. I've been watching him for a long time. I've called a lot of his fights as he came up. He has all the skills and the talent in the world. He's had a little bit of a mixed bag in terms of his performance as of late. But yeah, you can't knock what he's got. He's big, he's strong, he's fresh, he's talented, and he's a physical guy. So I think that you've always got to count him high.
Foster versus Fulton as well too on that undercard. You're reading that one too, Chris.
Awesome fight. Really, really good. Both sides, great boxer punchers, styles that I like a lot. I've been watching both these guys for a long time. If I have to lean one way, I go with the bigger man. This is Oshaki's weight class, and he's a big 30 pounder. And this is Fulton coming up in his third weight class at an elite level. You can never count him out, but this is going to be a really good tactical, strategic fight that guys like me are really going to watch and go over with a fine tooth comb because I think these guys are both very, very tactical stylists, and I'm curious to see how they match up. But the part of me inside that leans towards the bigger man says that Oshaki's probably going to win.
Let me get your thoughts closer to home in the UK. We had a big fight featuring one of your former opponents in the form of Conor Benn getting revenge over Chris Eubank Jr. If at all, what did Conor Benn do differently to get the victory over Eubank Jr. the second time round?
Oh, he made the adjustments he needed to. He fought a disciplined fight. He didn't fight discipline at all the first fight, and this fight he worked behind the jab. He was using stutter jabs. He was using feints. He was using an in and out movement. He fought Eubank like Eubank was the bigger man. And the first time they fought, he fought him like he was just gonna knock his head off, and he paid for that. But also Eubank was stuck in the mud. He had nothing for him that night. He looked shot. I don't know if he left it in the gym, he overtrained, if it was the weight, if it was where he is in his career. 36 is 36. So at this stage of the career of both of these guys, we got to see Conor Benn with a guy under 35. because all of his best wins are against the guys over 35 years old. It would be nice to see him in his weight class, whatever that may be, whether it's 54 or 47. And Chris Eubank, it's unfortunate for him because he lost a big opportunity because I think with a win there, he had a real shot at getting the Canelo fight. Now that's out the window. But regardless, he made a lot of money. Never won a world title, but had a good career. Got a lot of attention. Made tons of cash. Respectable, very respectable career. If he wants to continue on, which seems like he does, but I don't think we're going to see him at 60 anymore. I think he'll be campaigning at 68 moving forward.
Is it the type of performance that puts Conor Benn now at world level? He's calling for Devin Haney, he's calling for Ryan Garcia, he's calling for Gervonta Davis as well too. Is it the type of performance that puts him in that bracket?
It puts him in the bracket because he's a money earner. In terms of world class skills, it's still not it's still up in the air because he hasn't fought a young guy in the weight class that he's actually going to be rated at. But in terms of being able to call some of the shots because he is a money guy, yes, absolutely. He's certainly he's put butts in seats 2 times in a row now. Yes, it's been domestic. It's been over in the UK. Can he do it elsewhere? That's a question. But there's still the idea that there's a bag to be garnered by fighting Conor Benn. So that's a really important thing to have in this sport, and Conor's got that now.
Do you think he's more likely to go for a Manny Pacquiao who he had a face-off with as opposed to search for a world title?
I mean, yeah, I mean, you're seeing that more and more. Guys would much rather go for the money than for the actual competition. Nobody wants the tough fights anymore. They want the money fights, and that's why we see guys like Gervonta Davis going to fight Jake Paul. You have good opposition all around you, like a guy like Gervonta Davis. How many undefeated lightweight champions are there that he could have fought that could have been mega fights, but instead he chooses to go fight Jake Paul? In fact, he had a rematch with Lamont Roach and chose not to do that. Instead, fight Jake Paul. So more and more you're seeing fighters that don't care as much about legacy and care more about the bucks that are involved. And anyone who fights Manny Pacquiao, there's a lot of money. Even at this stage, there's a lot of money involved.
Glad you mentioned Jake Paul. I wonder if you're doing a live watch along for this on ppv.com like you will be for Roach versus Pitbull Cruz. That is Anthony Joshua taking on Jake Paul. I was in Miami for the press conference for it. Couldn't quite believe my eyes that I was first of all seeing this and then the disparity between the two of them. But we're led to believe this is a real fight. It's a real sanctioned fight. What happens in a real sanctioned fight between Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul?
I mean, I still don't even know if it's going to happen. I know they're pushing it like it is, but
Everyone
I
seems to be
can't.
saying that.
Yeah, I can't wrap my head around the fact that they're going to be in the ring together and actually putting on boxing gloves trying to hurt each other. It doesn't compute in my skull. But listen, if it happens, it happens. Boxing is the wild west. Anything can happen, and especially with Jake Paul and his money and his ability to make things happen, it's very possible. But I don't see how this fight ever makes it out of the first round. And if it does, then comes into question of is this a real fight? I mean, have the rules set come out yet? Have we heard whether or not Anthony Joshua has to wear, his boots on the wrong feet if he can't throw his right hand, if he has to be, set up to a shock therapy if he throws punches? Is there anything said yet, or is this a real fight? Do we know?
8 rounds, 10 ounce gloves, 3 minutes.
And it's a real sanctioned fight.
I believe so.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, again, if that goes down, I don't see how Jake Paul makes it very long. I mean, we're talking about Anthony Joshua. I keep seeing Francis Ngannou getting decapitated over and over and over again in my head when you talk about him fighting. The guy is still super dangerous. He punches like a mule kick, and he's an Olympic gold medalist. Tons of experience. So I from what I've seen at the press conferences, Joshua is very jovial,
Hmm.
which kind of throws me off about what this actually is. Is he just happy because he's making a lot of money? Is he just happy because he thinks this is a very easy fight? I would rather see a guy more stern, especially with a fight right around the corner. It's a very short turnaround for the fight. So maybe Jake Paul's crazy like a fox. Maybe he's got a guy who thinks that this is going to be really easy. I do know that Anthony Joshua's coming off an elbow injury. I don't know. So Jake Paul's not dumb. Jake Paul's not dumb. So I'm curious to see, first of all, if this happens. And if it does happen, I'll be tuned in.
We have two different perspectives over in the UK. One, obviously, of course, regarding Joshua and his successes. The other side being the American side. When I've spoken to American fighters, whether would be fighters or public, they have another perception of Anthony Joshua, and that is that he's quote unquote chinny, he can be got at, and that he's weak whenever he's been tagged on the chin. First of all, is that your perception of him, Chris? And second of all, does Jake Paul have the skill and execution and the power to land that big shot to put Joshua's lights out?
No, my perception of Anthony Joshua is not that. I do not share my countrymen's thought because I am not a boxing pundit for the USA. I'm a boxing pundit for the world, and I understand everyone who fights in the sport. And I understand the sport. Anthony Joshua is a fantastic fighter, and this is it's unfortunate that the American audiences think that. Um, but also, if you do think that, you still got to put the glove on the guy's chin. If his chin is weak, you still got to get it there. And last time we saw Jake Paul, he fought Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and he couldn't make him blink with a punch. So what? I don't know how they figure this out. That oh, he's just got to hit him. Okay, well, first of all, he's got to hit him. Second of all, if he does, is his chin that weak? Is the guy? I mean, is it just going to turn him off? No, that's not the way it works. He couldn't hurt a much smaller, washed up guy, and now he's going to fight Anthony Joshua, who's much closer to his prime, much bigger. So even if he does land the punch, which again is going to be difficult to do, is it enough to knock him out? Is it enough to hurt him? Let alone knock him out. He's got to hurt him. He's got to hurt him and finish him. We've seen Anthony Joshua hurt and then come back to knock you out. So there's that as well. I don't know. So it's an interesting discussion, but the people who are knocking Anthony Joshua, I think, are silly.
Here's a question I envisage you might get on the live watch along on ppv.com. You might get from the viewers tuning in to say, Chris, would you take the fight if Jake Paul offered you millions and millions? Would you get in the opposite corner to him and have that opportunity?
No,
Mm.
no, it's a
You're,
sideshow.
you're probably the
I had a,
first fighter to say that.
yeah, because first of all, I had a real career, and I respect the sport, and um, you're not just gonna pay me, so use me to come in there and go put this fight together. I'm not an active fighter. I haven't been for almost 5 years. To come off the couch just because of an opportunity, because there's a lot of money thrown at me. Listen, again, I respect what I've done in my career. Listen, if we were in my career and I was fighting and training and that came up and there was a reason for it, that's a whole different thing. Even Anthony Joshua, I don't knock Anthony Joshua at all for this. He's coming off of a loss. He's coming off of an elbow injury, and he's looking to get back in. This is a perfect get back fight, 8 rounder, and I get to make a ton of money. Makes total sense.
Lastly, in bringing this back to Pitbull and Lamont Roach, a lot on the line in the fight, not only for the interim title, but also the potential that both fighters might want another shot at Gervonta Davis. Do you think that's something they want? Do you think that's something they should go for, given Gervonta Davis's maybe reliability and status in the sport right now?
Wait, say that again. What was the question?
Well, obviously, a lot on the line in terms of the fight between Pitbull Cruz and Lamont Roach interim title, but also the potential of getting Gervonta Davis back in the ring for that second bout between the both of them. Is that something that you think they both should go for, given Gervonta Davis's current status and maybe reliability to get in the ring right now?
Yeah, sorry, I had to ask again because I think it's so ridiculous to think about Gervonta Davis fighting again. I don't think the guy wants to fight. He doesn't want to fight. I don't think he wants to fight anybody. He had an opportunity to right some wrongs with the rematch with Roach, and he chose to fight Anthony Joshua, and then he tanked that himself by acting the way he's acting. It just shows you the man does not want to fight. So I don't think that either one of these guys should be holding their breath for Gervonta Davis. They should push forward with their careers, and they have very bright futures ahead of themselves without Gervonta Davis. So they shouldn't be worrying about that.
Okay, Chris, always an insightful chat. Can't wait to see the fights materialize and also check in on the watch along ppv.com, of course, December 6th for Pitbull Cruz versus Lamont Roach. Thanks again for your time.
Absolutely, always a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine. Appreciate it.